Hey, what's up you guys, it's Ch13 and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we're going to go into chapter 13 of Marked by PC Cast and Kristen Cast, so let's get right into this video. This video may contain sensitive topics and foul language. If you do not wish to continue, I suggest you click off the video now. You have been warned. I actually found my way to lit class by myself, okay, so it was just on the other side of Nefret's room, but still, I felt a little more confident when I didn't have to ask to be led around like a helpless new kid. "Zoe, we saved a desk for you," Stevie Ray yelled the instant I got to class. She was sitting beside Damien and practically hopping up and down with excitement. She looked like a happy puppy again, which made me smile. I was really glad to see her. So, tell me everything. How was drama? Did you like it? Do you like Professor Nolan? Isn't her tattoo cool? It reminds me of a mask, kinda. Damien grabbed Stevie Ray's arm. "Breathe and let the girl answer." "Sorry," she said sheepishly. "I guess Nolan's tattoos are cool," I said. "You guess." "Well, I was distracted." "What?" she said. Then her eyes narrowed. "Did someone embarrass you about your mark? I swear, people are just plain rude." "No, that wasn't it. Actually, that Elizabeth, no last name girl, she said she thought it was cool. I was distracted because, well, I was feeling my face get hot again. I decided that I was going to ask them about Eric. But now that I started talking, I wondered whether I should say anything. Should I tell them about the hall?" Damien perked up. "I feel a juicy tidbit coming on." "Come on, Zoe. You were distracted because..." He drew the word out into a question. Okay. I can sum it up with 2 words. Eric Knight." Stevie Ray's mouth dropped open and Damien did a little pretend swoon, which he had to straighten up from right away because at that moment the bell rang and Professor Penthesilea swept into the room. Later, Stevie Ray whispered, "Absolutely," Damien mouthed. I smiled innocently. If nothing else, I was sure that I would love the fact that mentioning Eric would drive them crazy all hour. Lit class was an experience. First of all, the classroom itself was totally different than any I'd ever seen. There were bizarrely interesting posters and paintings and what looked like original artwork filling each inch of the wall space, and hanging from the ceiling were wind chimes and crystals, lots of them. Professor Penthesilea, whose name I now recognize from Vamp Soch class as belonging to the most revered of all Amazons, and who everyone called Professor P, was like something out of the movies, well, the ones on the Sci-Fi Channel. She had seriously long reddish blonde hair, big hazel eyes, and a curvy body that probably made all the guys drool. Not that it's very hard to make teenage boys drool. Her tattoos were thin, pretty Celtic knots that traced their way down her face and around her cheekbones, making them look high and dramatic. She was wearing expensive-looking black slacks and a moss-colored silk cardigan sweater set that had the same goddess figure embroidered over the breast as Nefret had been wearing. And now that I thought about it, and not Eric, I realized Professor Nolan's blouse had the goddess embroidered on the breast pocket of her blouse too. I was born in April of year 1902, Professor P said, instantly grabbing our attention. I mean, please, she barely looked 30. So I was 10 years old in April of 1912, and I remember the tragedy very well. About what am I speaking? Do any of you have any idea? Okay, I knew exactly what she was talking about, but it wasn't because I'm a hopeless history nerd. It's because when I was younger, I thought I was in love with Leonardo DiCaprio, and my mom got me the entire DVD collection of all his movies for my 12th birthday. This particular movie I watched so many times, I still have most of it memorized, and I cannot tell you how many times I snot cried when he slipped off the board and floated away like an adorable popsicle. I looked around. No one else seemed to have a clue, so I sighed and raised my hand. Professor P smiled and called on me. "Yes, Miss Redbird. The Titanic sank in April of 1912. It was struck by the iceberg late on Sunday night, the 14th, and sank just a few hours later on the 15th. I heard Damien suck air beside me, and Stevie Ray's little "huh?" Geesh, had I really been acting so dense that they were shocked to hear me answer a question correctly? "I do love it when a new fledgling knows something," Professor P said. "Absolutely correct, Miss Redbird. I was living in Chicago at the time of the tragedy, and I will never forget the newsies shouting the tragic headlines from the street corners. It was a horrid event, especially because the loss of lives were so preventable. It also signaled the end of one age and the beginning of another, as well as bringing about many much-needed changes in shipping laws. We are going to study all of this, plus the deliciously melodramatic events of the night in our next piece of literature, Walter Lord's meticulously researched book, A Night to Remember, although Lord was not a vampire, and it's really a shame he wasn't. She added under her breath, I still find this take on the night compelling, and his writing style and tone interesting and very readable. Okay, let's get started. The last person in each row get books for the people in your row from the long cabinet in the back of the room. Well, cool. This was definitely more interesting than reading Great Expectations, Pipistella, Who Cares? I settled in with a night to remember at my notebook, opened to take well notes. Professor P started to read chapter 1 aloud to us, and she was actually a good reader. 3 class hours almost over, and I'd like all of them. Was it possible that this vamp school would actually be more than a boring place I went to every day because I had to? And besides that, all my friends were there? Not that all of the classes at SIHS had been boring, but we didn't get to study the Amazons and the Titanic from a teacher who'd been alive when it sank. I glanced around at the other kids while Professor P read. There were 15 of us, which seemed about the average in my other classes too. All of them had their books open and were paying attention. Then my eye was caught by something red and bushy on the other side of the room, near the rear of the class. I'd spoken too soon. Not all the kids were paying attention. This one had his head down on his arms and he was sound asleep, which I knew because his freckled face was turned in my direction. His mouth was open, and I think he might have been drooling a little. I wondered what Professor P would do to the kid. She didn't seem like the kind of teacher who would be cool with some kid sleeping in the back of the room, but she just kept on with her reading. Interspread, with interesting first-hand facts about the early 20th century, which I really liked. I loved hearing about the flappers. I would definitely have been a flapper if I lived in the 1920s. It wasn't until the bell was about to ring and Professor P had assigned the next chapter as homework, and then told us we could talk quietly amongst ourselves that she acted as if she noticed the sleeping kid and all. He started to stir, finally lifting his head to display the bright red sleeping circle that was on the side of his forehead and looked bizarrely out of place beside his mark. Elliot, I need to see you, Professor P said from behind her desk. The kid took his time getting up and then dragged his feet, scuffing his untied shoes over to her desk. Yeah? Elliot, you are, of course, failing lit, but what's more important is you're failing life. Vampire males are strong, honorable, and unique. They have been our warriors and protectors for countless generations. How do you expect to make the change into a being who is more warrior than man if you do not practice the discipline it takes to even stay awake in class? He shrugged his soft-looking shoulders. Her expression hardened. I shall give you one opportunity to make up that 0 for class participation you received today by writing a short paper on any issue that was important in America in the early 20th century. The paper is due tomorrow. Without saying anything, he started to turn away. Elliot, Professor P's voice had dropped in a thick with irritation. It made her sound way scarier than she seemed while she had been reading and lecturing. I could feel the power radiating from her, and it made me wonder why she would ever need a male anything to protect her. The kid stopped and turned back to face her. I did not excuse you. What is your decision about doing the makeup work today? To make up today 0. The kid just stood there without saying anything. The question calls for an answer, Elliot, now. The air around her crackled with a command, making the skin on my arms tingle. Seemingly unaffected, he shrugged again. I probably won't do it. That says something about your character, Elliot, and it's not something good. You're not only letting yourself down, but you're letting down your mentor, too. He shrugged again and absently picked his nose. The dragon already knows how I am. The bell rang, and Professor P, with a disgusted look on her face, motioned for Elliot to leave the room. Damien, Stevie Ray, and I had just stood up and were starting to walk out the door when Elliot slouched by us, moving more quickly than I believed possible for someone so sloth-like. He bumped into Damien, who was ahead of us. Damien made an oops sound and stumbled a little. Fucking gay boy, get out of my way, the kid snarled, pushing Damien with his shoulder so he could get through the door before him. I should smack the crap out of that jerk, Stevie Ray said, hurrying up to Damien, who was waiting for us. He shook his head. Don't worry about it. The Elliot kid has major problems. Yeah, like having poopy for brains, I said, staring down the hall at the departing kid's back. His hair was certainly unattractive. Poopy for brains, Damien laughed and linked one arm through mine and one through Stevie Ray's, leading us down the hall, Wizard of Oz fashion. That's what I like about you, Zoe, he said. She has such a way with vulgar language. Poopy's not vulgar, I said defensively. I think that's his point, honey, Stevie Ray laughed. Oh, I laughed too, and I really, really liked how it sounded when he said, "Our Zoe," like I belonged, like I might be home. That is the end of this chapter. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.